Well, welcome to Wales on this cold winter's evening as the sun starts to set behind the medieval ruins of Hen Eglwys, Margam. As well as the beautiful countryside and rich history, Wales has many ghostly stories and legends dating back centuries. And this time of year, winter, is a perfect time to sit around the fire and share some of those tales. So let's have a look at some more ghost stories from mysterious South Wales. But before we get started, let's have a look at this building, Hen Eglwys, also known as Craig Chapel, and there's been reports of a ghost in these ruins. People have seen a young lady in period costume just sitting quietly in the corner of the building, and when they've had the courage to approach her, she just disappears. So let's go and take a look for ourselves. Below me is the imposing Gothic mansion known as Margam Castle, and is meant to be haunted by a number of ghosts. The most famous of these is the ghost of Robert Scott, who's meant to be a really angry ghost, and he's been spotted on the main staircase of the castle. He was the gamekeeper for the Margam estate, and he was brutally murdered by a poacher in 1898. You can find his grave. It's in the graveyard of Margam Abbey church. I've already done a video about this area and I mentioned that story, so if you want to find out more about Robert Scott, I'll put the link in below and it's coming up at the end as well. But it's not just Robert Scott, there's many other sinister goings on in Margam Castle. Footsteps have been heard running down the corridor, and giggling and laughing coming from children. And also a few apparitions have been seen of these children in Victorian dress passing through the rooms. Well, in the grounds of Margam Castle, you can find the ruins from the 12th century Cistercian Abbey. It was a centre of learning and grew to be of great importance in the 12th and 13th century. But it suffered a number of misfortunes over the years, the worst being the Black Death, which arrived in 1349. Well then, it's no surprise that the shadowy figure of a monk has been spotted walking the ruins of the East Range and the ruins of the chapter house of Margam Abbey. Well, those are just a few ghostly sightings around this area of Margam, but let's get on to a couple of stories, and the first one we're going to have a look at is the Blue Lady of Dunraven. Well, for this story, I'm back at Dunraven Bay on the south coast of Glamorgan. And I was here a few months ago when I told you the story, or the tragic story of Walter Vaughan. He was a local landowner and owned Dunraven Castle. But due to a series of tragic events, he became a drunk and a gambler and nearly lost the family fortune. And because of that, he turned to smuggling and wrecking along this part of the coast. Anyway, I won't go too much into that story because I've covered it already, I'm going to put the link below and it'll be coming up at the end of this video. Anyway, without giving too much of the story away, one of the tragic events which beset the Vaughan family was the drowning of their two youngest children. And shortly after this, it was said that Lady Vaughan died of a broken heart. Well, the Vaughan family lived in Dunraven Castle on Witch's Point overlooking Dunraven Bay. The original castle has long gone. It was replaced by a later house and walled garden on the site of the original castle. Well, during the wars, the house was used as a military hospital, and this was when staff and patients reported seeing a mournful looking lady wandering the old rooms of the house. And because of her appearance, she became known as the Blue Lady of Dunraven. It's said that the Blue Lady of Dunraven still walks the ruins of Dunraven Castle and the walled garden below, forever searching for the souls of her two lost children. Well, our next story is also about a woman, but this time the ghost is a bit more sinister. It's the story of Mallt Y Nos. Like many good ghost stories and legends, there's often many versions dating back centuries, and this story is no exception. It can be traced back to ancient Celtic mythology, but the version I'm going to tell you is set here in the Vale of Glamorgan and dates from the time when the Norman lords ruled the land. Our story features Matilda. She was a beautiful yet callous Norman noblewoman, and she lived in the Vale of Glamorgan following its occupation by the Norman lord Robert Fitzamon. Her real passion was hunting, and she would ride the fields and the forests of the Vale of Glamorgan on a horse with a pack of hounds. She was so obsessed with hunting, she proclaimed, "If there's no hunting in heaven, I'd rather not go." And that is the statement she would later regret. It's said that when she died, she was greeted by Arawn, the Welsh god of the underworld. He turned her into a hideous crone and condemned her to hunt for all eternity with the Cwn Annwn, with the Celtic hellhounds. So instead of Matilda's hunting screams of joy, you now hear the screams and howls of misery as she is forced to hunt for eternity underneath the night sky. And if you're unlucky enough to hear the screams, it's said to be the foreshadowing of evil or death, usually for the person who hears the scream. Well, I hope you enjoyed some of the stories from mysterious South Wales, and stay tuned, there's some more coming up next. But the problem I've got now, I have to walk alone, back to the car through a forest. Fingers crossed I'll see you next time. I'm in my 50s. Grow up, man.